Hi, welcome back to Shock's Talks. I'm Shakti, and today we're talking about Surviving Death, this book by Leslie Kean. So I'm in a new setup today. I've kind of rearranged my side room, so hopefully this camera angle is getting everything we need, and I'm also sorry about the clunky noises. I'm fighting a little cold, so I didn't want to let too many weeks go by without making another episode. And this book was really mind-blowing. So basically, usually when I read a book and cover it on this channel, I go very deep. Today I'm just going to graze the surface, and I'm actually going to tie this into my own personal experience with death, because it's been a little bit over a month since my dog transitioned to the non-physical, or whatever it is that's beyond this physical life. And so I really want to talk a little bit more about things that I've learned that have helped me to process that experience and might also help you. But first, let's talk a little bit about this book. So I've included a lot of links today as I was researching more about Leslie Kean, and I've talked about her before on Shock's Talks because I did do some in-depth coverage of her book UFOs, and that is, I'll try to dig up that episode and link it below as well. But that book, the full title is UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. And it's a similar structure to that book where she has different people contributing. It's really deep, thorough research. And I'm going to read you some little paragraphs off of her website to give you an idea of who she is. So Leslie Kean is an independent investigative journalist focused on bringing credible information about hidden paranormal and impossible realities into the mainstream. She is the author of the award-winning Surviving Death, A Journalist Investigates Evidence for an Afterlife, and UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. Kean explores compelling case studies of two young American boys reporting numerous details from past lives, later verified as accurate contemporary mediums, who provide accurate readings while tested under rigorous controls, a responsive apparition who provides information about her life on Earth, extraordinary accounts of actual death journeys into a sublime afterlife dimension by patients with no brain function, and plaster molds made by materialized hands and feet during a scientific study where any possibility of fraud had been eliminated. Now that part might sound like, what are we talking about here? What do you mean plaster hands made in molds? Like, what she's talking about is materialization of non-physical hands into physical matter reality. Now that part of the book just was like blowing my mind. That's towards the end of it. So, during the course of her investigation, Kean also directly experienced inexplicable phenomena with life-changing results. She observed the effects of mysterious forces acting with apparent intelligence, able to move objects, received obscure and accurate details from possible discarnate loved ones communicating through people unknown to them, and she observed contemporary genuine physical mediums facilitating levitations, independent voices, and materializations of physical forms. This is the book again. And this is Leslie Kean right here. I don't know if you can see that. And actually, I got to meet her this past, just a couple months ago, at the Psy Games, the first ever Psy Games, which took place in Charlottesville, Virginia, early in August 2025. And she was in line for coffee in the morning, and I saw her and I knew who she was, and I was too nervous to like ask her a bunch of questions first thing in the morning, but I just asked her, do you pronounce your name Kane or Keen? Because it's spelled Kean. N, and I was always like feeling like I wasn't quite sure. And she was like, it's Kane. And she was really nice. And then we chatted for like 2 seconds, and she was with somebody else. And I just told her I really love her work. And she was, she just had like a little sparkle in her eye. She was a small person, curly grayish hair. And I just thought it was so cool that she was standing right there next to me, because she really is really a powerful journalist. And I was kind of just starstruck, and I was like, I don't want to be annoying. So I kept it very brief. As is the case with many of those meetings, like I've gone to quite a few conferences where I see people where I'm just like, oh my God, it's you. But they don't know you, and you don't want to be weird, but you do want to like shake their hand and just make that connection. I don't know, it just feels special to have those moments, So in this book, there are 4 parts, and part 1 is all about reincarnation. It's called Is There Life Before Birth? And in this part, she goes deep into these stories of children who remember their past lives when they were born. They're just having these memories, and their parents start to notice something weird is going on. And then some of them decide to investigate, and then they can verify all these details that the kids were reporting about the past life that they had. So what they were able to verify is that life did happen, and everything that kid said was real. And the question still remains, did that kid actually live that life, or did they just somehow have some kind of access to the data, in the data stream of reality? Did they somehow just have that information flowing to them? I guess that's always a possibility, but the way that it feels when you dig deeper into the story and understand the emotional implications that these memories have on these children, it starts to look like they really did live that life, and that really was them. There's something very deep and personal about it. So she goes all deep into that in the first part of this book, and there are multiple examples and research from different countries and different factors that might make it more or less likely that kids would be having these experiences, like culturally. So she goes into that in part 1. Part 2 is called To Death and Back Again, and this is more about NDEs, near-death experiences, and journeys out of the body, like the out-of-body experience, and then what's called intermission memories, which is life between lives. So there's tons of research out there about this stuff. Many people report near-death experiences, like, for example, from the hospital bed. So maybe they're in some kind of surgery or procedure, and all of a sudden they float out of their body, and they can see themselves, they can see what the doctors are doing, and they can hear what the doctors are saying. When they come back awake and they come back into their body, they can say, hey, did this happen? Did that happen? And the doctor can say, yes, actually, we were talking about that, or we were playing that music, or whatever the case may be. And there are many other stories like that in this section. And part 3 is going into communications from non-local minds. So she's talking about mediumship, channels, transmediumship, and after-death communications. So receiving messages from the dead. And part of this book is her own personal story about her own connection to her brother who passed away, and some of the messages that she was able to receive from him. And then the part 4 is where it really gets mind-blowing. And this is that part that's really about like seance and poltergeist activity and mediumship and physical effects on this reality from what we might think of as non-physical reality. So it's kind of like psi abilities, like psychokinesis, but instead of an embodied human performing psychokinesis in physical matter reality, you have a disembodied or non-physical being affecting physical matter reality, like able to move things, able to like float things or materialize objects, or to express disembodied voices. I mean, these things, it just, like I said, it's really hard to wrap the mind around or to believe, and nobody's asking anyone to believe anything, but if you're curious about that kind of thing, I highly recommend digging into this. And I actually listened to the audiobook because my intention was to listen to it and then go back and read sections in the hard copy. And it's going to take me a while to process everything in here, which is why I chose not to do a very in-depth coverage of this book, because I think people need to read it for themselves. So this kind of thing is going to be really meaningful to you if you have someone who has passed on and you're still grappling with where did they go, what might be happening, what are my chances of communicating or connecting with them, is there any opportunity for us to have some kind of physical connection? Could I go out of my body and connect to them? Things like that. You'll find some pathways in this book that might lead you to your own research or your own ability to connect. And I also discovered when I was checking her website again that Netflix actually made a series on this book, and it's called Surviving Death. And I haven't watched it yet, but I linked it below, and I probably will check that out to see what they cover in that series. So if you're someone who prefers to watch and not read, you could check out the Netflix series on Surviving Death. And there's also Hulu and Disney have a series on her UFO work. So it's called UFOs Investigating the Unknown. And there are so many of these good docuseries, especially on the UFO UAP topic, that kind of come and go, and it's hard to find them. They get buried in all of the other stuff that's out there. There's so much content being released at such a rapid pace these days that sometimes this really meaningful work just gets lost, among all of the other pieces of entertainment that are out there. So I think having these here in the links is a nice reminder for any of us who are sitting around, I don't know, on a cold, rainy night, wondering what we should watch. Maybe check out one of these. So, the reason that I read this book now is because, like I said, my dog passed away, and also because I have had other experiences with loss of life, friends that have gone on, and then other people who I'm really close to who have really had to deal with deep loss of like a partner, for example. One of my good friends and I, we talk about this topic a lot because she is still very much in love with her husband and partner who is no longer in physical matter reality with us. And that connection is so strong and powerful that it's actually putting her on this path of learning about the paranormal, you could say. And I think there are many people who can relate to that experience, that you may not think of it in your regular life when everything is just going fine and you have all the people that you want still with you in this reality, but as soon as you lose one of them, it might send you on a path of inquiry. And so I think I just wanted to reflect a little bit on the things that have really helped me with this loss that I'm going through right now, and the ongoing journeys of the ones that I love who are trying to find answers and find solutions for themselves. How do I maintain this love connection? How do I stay in this reality when the person I love most is no longer here with me? And also, how do we all go through the process of death and loss with a little more grace and compassion, and just in a way that feels healthier? Because sometimes, at least in the Western culture, especially the only culture I know, the culture of the United States where I grew up and have lived all my life, there seems to be this kind of rushing energy around death. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to think about it. And then when the time comes to deal with it, It's just this logistical nightmare. And there's not a lot of space for the spiritual process that you might want to engage with around that time. So a couple things that have helped me. One is I am part of a community of friends who lost someone some years ago who was my age, and he was very close to a lot of us, just very beloved in the community. And we did a lot of group ceremony around this loss. First of all, we came together immediately the day after we found out, and there was just a lot of crying and a lot of hugging and a lot of crying and crying and crying. It was just a big, emotional processing day for a lot of people, and we just came together just instinctively. I mean, some people started making phone calls, and then we all got together at somebody's house, and that house became this hub of mourning that we continued to revisit over the years for different moments of ceremony. There's an altar that lives there that has been active ever since. There have been many gatherings and parties where we come together and reflect on this loss. And, there were many pictures shared among the community, and there was a huge fire ceremony. And without going into too many of the details, I just want to say that we really took our time with the grieving process, and we were very open about it, and we were very together in it. We shared emotion, we held space for one another, and we continue to reflect on that experience, and we will always continue to reflect on that experience. And there are things that happen when someone passes away, especially in the days and weeks right after they leave, where all kinds of different people have these sightings of signs and symbols that relate to the person that feel very meaningful. And that can continue for a very long time afterwards. Sometimes there are messages in dreams. I've had many encounters with this individual where I meet him in a dream and it's as real, and for some reason the version of him in the dream sort of stands out against everyone else in the dream, and he's very vivid. He's exactly like he was when he left this earthly realm. Same outfit, same personality, same everything. And we usually have a brief interaction, and I often have the sensation that in the dream I'm the only one who can see him. That's the weird little added bit. It's like I'm aware of the fact that I can see him, but nobody else knows that he's there. And I've had that multiple times. Not really sure what that means, but it's just an interesting detail. I have heard from people who didn't even know him in real life, but knew of him, that they were visited by him in a visionary state or a dream state and received messages and communications. And they didn't even know him in real life. So those were just really interesting things that have occurred. And I think what I learned from that experience is that, it's important to just go through the messy process, let it unfold as it wants to. Let it be an organic process, We don't need to shove away the emotions. We don't need to compartmentalize, and we don't need to put our grief on a timeline. It takes the amount of time it takes. And for some of us, we will carry those feelings and those people with us for the rest of our lives. And for some of us, probably beyond these lives. These connections run really deep, and they probably span multiple lives in certain situations. That same friend who was hosting a lot of those community gatherings, she also lost a cat and had a cat funeral. And I had never been to an animal's funeral in my life. And it was one of the most touching and beautiful experiences that I've ever had with this kind of thing. And that was something that really helped to prepare me for losing my own dog. And what was really special is that it was actually like an open casket cat funeral. I had not expected that anyone would just keep an animal's body around after the soul had left, and that I would actually want to see that body and to like give it a little pet and maybe place a little offering. It just was unheard of to me, and it ended up being the most soothing and comforting experience. I was scared. I had never seen an open casket of any kind, with human or animal. I've seen dead animals out in the world, of course, because that happens a lot with like animals in the country getting hit by a car, or you just come across a dead animal in the woods. But I hadn't really ever seen anyone's pet after their life was gone from the body. And it was not disturbing. That's what was so shocking to me. It wasn't disturbing at all. It was actually really comforting and really sweet to just see, okay, here's this little body that used to hold this creature's soul, and it's no longer here, but it's okay. And everyone is welcome to observe that. And I felt like that was so important for me and really prepared me for my own process that I was going to go through later. And when we buried that cat, people were sharing photos and memories and stories, and we were leaving offerings in the hole, treats and foods and flowers and special gifts to go into that grave with that animal. And it just felt so ceremonial in such a special and beautiful way. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I just want to show you what's possible in case you don't know, and this might apply to you. You might want to take a little more time with your own pet or even with a human. During the pandemic, a friend of mine was dealing with death as a death doula, and she was teaching some of us that like even a human body is not a disgusting thing. After the soul leaves and the life leaves the body, you can actually be with that body for many hours after the death has occurred. And you can do things like, you know, clean it, take care of it, like maybe fix the person's hair, or there's a lot that can be done that is usually rushed, and we're kind of like told like it's unsanitary, it's gross, push it aside, get rid of it, don't look at it, let other people, let the professionals deal with this. But she was sharing a story where her and her friend who had just lost her mother were actually able to be with that body for many hours after the soul passed, before they even called anyone, before they did anything. This was unheard of to me, but it was something that was very healing for them and gave them the time to really have their own moment of like grieving and accepting what had happened. So for me, with my dog, you know, I had him for 8 years, and I got him from the shelter, so I never knew his exact age, and he might have been older than I thought. But at the end of his life, it all happened really quickly. And without going into the whole story, it just reached the point where I had to make that decision one day. Like, am I going to let him struggle for a few more weeks while his health continues to decline and this inevitable heart condition takes him out, or am I going to release him from his body? Which is a crazy decision to have to make, and a lot of you have probably been there, or maybe you will at some point. But luckily I had a friend with me that day, and she really helped me through, because she really showed me that like I don't have to feel pressured to make a decision right away. I can always leave here and come back. I can have someone come to the house. There's a mobile vet in town that can come, and you can do this in the comfort of your own home. And there were all these options, and we talked through everything for a long time, but something in me just knew it was time. And I had been getting signals from my dog for weeks leading up to that he was ready, and I just wasn't ready. So it was taking me a long time to get to that point. But that day I knew that it was time. And so once I found out that I could actually bring his little body home with me and bury him in my own yard, that's when I decided that it was okay to let this be the day. And so there was there was a room that you go to, and they bring him into the room, and he has a little IV, and I get to have as much time with him as I want. And then when the time comes, I press a button, the doctor comes back in, or the vet, and then they can administer the shot that will stop his functioning. And well, before I get into what happened after that, I just want to show you the cutest picture ever. This is my sweet little baby in his wizard getup, because he is a little galactic wizard. And, you know, it was obviously one of the hardest moments of my life, but there was something very intimate and beautiful about it at the same time. Holding his little body and his little head right over my heart, and letting all of the love that is possible in reality flow from me to him in that final moment, and being that gateway, making myself and my heart into that portal for his transition. I really just held him there and kind of envisioned him melting into my heart and passing through my heart into wherever he's going next, and physically just felt him, melt into my heart as his body just stopped being alive. And of course I was hit with a huge wave of sadness right after that moment, but I was able to take him home and take my time preparing this hole in the yard where we were going to bury him, which was hard work, because digging a deep hole is no joke. And I had him in this little case that they gave me, and I opened it up, and I was petting him and just observing his body, which was really important for me because it takes a long time for the body to stop feeling alive. It's still warm for a long time, and there's nothing gross about it. There was nothing bad about it. And it was actually really good for my brain to be able to see that body and understand that the life was gone from it for a while. It took me a while to understand that. And then to be able to kind of put him into his favorite laying down position, which was this little donut shape that he would lay in, and wrap this little blanket around him that I crocheted right when I got him. It was his baby blanket, and he had it the whole time that it would just lay on his bed with him. And so I was able to wrap him in that blanket and place him in the earth in this, place that was right outside my bedroom window where I can look at it every day. And we put flowers, and we put some offerings, and I put some of my most special crystals that I've had with me through all kinds of different experiences. And then we started to bury him, and at the end of the burial, it began to rain a little bit. I didn't want to do a big community situation. I didn't want to even have a meal train. I didn't want to drag anything out because I knew I was going to be so sad for so long. But it was nice to have that one friend with me, and she was the person that actually found him for me at the shelter. So it was this beautiful full circle moment. And immediately after that, there was this window of a couple of days where I could feel my mind teetering on the brink of which way are we going to go with this? Are we going to honor this life and honor this love and be courageous and stay heart-centered, or are we going to collapse into a victim mindset? Poor, pitiful me, everything sucks now, life is horrible, I hate everything, and now I have a right to just basically freak out and do whatever I want because nothing even matters. You know what I'm saying? There was a crossroads, and I could feel it. I could feel that energy of you can go this way or you can go that way. And it took a lot of mental and emotional strength to choose the path of love and to stay centered in the beauty of all that this little creature had brought into my life. So I really actively put myself in the mindset of talking out loud to him as much as I needed to, honoring my emotions as much as I needed to, crying, taking my time with it, doing a little ceremony, going out to that little resting place every day and placing flowers. It's been over a month and I've been doing some kind of ceremony ever since then, some different versions. I'm letting myself take as much time as I need. And there's this very real reality of just like your life is different. You don't have what you had before when somebody isn't in the physical with you anymore. But the love that was created and all the good experiences that happened are still, those are just as real as anything. They live in the cellular memory of every single cell of my being. They live in my consciousness, they live in my energy body, and they live in my whole house because we programmed this physical space together with our love and with all of our experiences that we had in this place. And so I chose to focus on all of those things, and I've cried almost every day since then, at least a little bit. And some of that is like really, really painful because, especially with a creature, they represent the most pure love that we can experience. It's so good and so pure. But one of the things that really helped me was knowing that every single day of our life together, I honored him while he was here. I was a good dog mom and he was the perfect dog every single day, and we loved each other so much every single day. And every single time I filled up his water bowl, I did a blessing over the water every single time. And when I was getting rid of, I thought I was going to just get rid of everything all at once. I had this impulse to just I don't want to look at anything. I don't want to think about it. It's too painful. But I didn't let myself do that. I didn't let myself be that drastic. And it's okay if you do need to do that. Everybody needs to do whatever they've got to do. But I needed to do it slowly. So little by little, I took certain things to the Goodwill, but I kept certain things. I kept his leash, I kept his collar and his tags, and I kept his water bowl because right when I was about to drop off his food bowl and his water bowl, I realized, no, this is a sacred item, and so much energy and love went into this bowl. At the very least, I can turn it into a potted plant or something like that, but for now, I even put it on my altar and did my same water blessing over it so that his spirit could come and take a drink if he wanted to. And, I've had some dreams about him, but not as many as I did when he was alive in his body. He used to show up in my dreams all the time. And he was always running around in the dreams, and then he would come back right before I was going to wake up. I would be looking for him, calling him, and he would come back, and we would wake up together. It was just a very interesting thing that would always happen. And now it's been harder to connect with him through dreams. And I don't know where he is or what he's up to. And I don't know if he continues to exist or if he's merged into the oneness or if he's reincarnating. I don't know if he's in some spirit world. He could be right here just hanging around for all I know. But there's no easy way to understand what happens after people leave the physical. So what we do have is just how we deal with it. And we have the love that we created, while we had the chance to create it. So I guess all of this is to say, just the cliche that everyone says, make sure to tell the people that you love them, enjoy and treat every person as if this could be your last day, because we never know. We know that we're all going to die. We don't know when it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. That's the one thing that is a guarantee. If you're born, if you become alive, you're going to die. And we don't want to talk about it in our culture. We don't want to think about it. But I think that sharing these experiences with each other is a really good way to help prepare. And I told one of my friends, I'm going through this process and I'm really observing as much as I can the lessons that are coming with this death, because there will be more deaths in my life that I have to deal with, of people that I love. Like, I don't even want to speak about it, because it's like nobody wants to think about these things, but family members will go, friends will go, more people that I love will go as time goes on, or maybe I will. And so if it's going to be me that goes before the people I love, I want to make sure I left them with as much love as possible. Like, every day I took the time to share something meaningful or be the version of myself that could offer something to them. And if it's them that goes before me, I want to make sure that I have given myself the permission to grieve in whatever ways I need to. And part of this process has also been learning about other people and their journeys with loss and grief, and opening my mind to new ways of seeing reality because of them and because of what they have needed to see in order to keep surviving in life. So I know this is kind of an emotional topic and I don't want to be a downer to everybody, but I just wanted to share that, like, this has actually been one of the most beautiful times in my life. As much as it has been sad, it's been full of magic as well. And every time someone crosses over, I feel that the veil becomes thinner. I have more connections on the other side. Like I said, I still don't know what that other side is, but I know that there's something to it. I imagine, based on all the research I've done and all the theories that I've read and all the books that I've read, that there are multiple possibilities for what can happen. That perhaps some people do merge back into some kind of oneness consciousness, and others reincarnate right away into a new body back here on Earth. Perhaps some reincarnate into other reality frames. And maybe some stay in the non-physical for the duration of our physical lives, or even longer. It seems to me that there are many possibilities of what could happen, and so there's no easy way to determine what the path will be of each soul as they go on. And because we can't have any certainty around it, I think it leaves a lot on us in terms of how we choose to deal with it and how we choose to approach it. So I believe that love is the most powerful force in all reality, and it goes beyond everything, even like the reality frames or the dimensions or the physical or non-physical realities that may be part of this whole larger reality. Love, to me, is the one thing that transcends all of those things. And so if I am sending love to my little sweet dog, who may or may not be a dog now, he may be a ball of light, or he may be a human baby now for all I know, or he may be an alien in some other dimension, or he may just be a little dog ghost. But I don't want to limit him or confine him in my mind to any of those things, because I don't know what he is. And he might be beyond anything that my mind can fathom. But whatever he is, he exists in some form. And if I'm loving him, he's receiving that love. That's the one thing that I've decided for myself. And if I need to feel his love and our connection, it's on me to just open and receive that, because I know that, like, our love is real and that it's continuous, So that's what I'm going to bring with me into these other experiences that are going to keep happening for all of us. It's this, just the feeling that love transcends all of these things. It blows everything else out of the water, and nothing can stop the power of love from getting where it needs to go. And I believe the same is true for all of us who are still in our bodies. I have people in my life who I don't talk to anymore because we've gone through some seriously painful situations in this life, and it doesn't feel practical to continue connecting for various reasons, some of them including safety, for example. But I love them. I love them with all my heart. Two people I'm thinking of in particular, a best friend who I grew up with and an ex-partner. And I don't talk to either of them anymore. And we've all gone our separate ways. And I still send love to them. And it's a weird thing because it's like they're still here in physical matter reality and so am I. But as soon as we start connecting, the history that we've had, it's always explosive. Something always gets messed up. It always goes in a negative direction. You probably know this if you've had any kind of toxic relationship with anyone or an abusive relationship or something along those lines. But it doesn't mean that you don't love each other, or that, at least from my side of it, I know that like the love is continuous. So, yeah, I guess there's not a whole lot else to say. This is just a kind of rambling episode on my recent experiences with loss in relationship to this book I just read. I hope that it's helpful to just hear my personal stories, like that it might open up something for you or give you permission to go through this process on your own when the time comes for you to go through a loss or a grieving process, that you know that you can be creative with it. You can make up your own way. It's your own timeline. You can do research if it helps you. You can come back to this episode and look at the description box and try some of those books or documentaries. You can connect with groups. You can connect with friends. You can do ceremonies and rituals. You can conceptualize it in whatever ways you need to get through it. And it's part of the human experience, and it's full of beautiful gifts. And the most important thing is that it reminds us how precious our lives are and how special it is that we get to be together. And that's the part that really inspires me the most. I will say that with my dog, like I said, every day was so wonderful. I have no regrets whatsoever. And I want to feel the same way with all of the important people in my life. So I do think about that a lot. I want to make sure that I'm honoring the connections in the ways that I need to, because there will come a time when they don't exist in the same way that they do now. And who knows, I've told my friend this before. I like to imagine that there's this cosmic campfire on the other side. It would be really fun if we all just do go to the non-physical and everybody's there and they're all like, ha ha ha, I was here all along. I've been watching you finish out your life. Like, we all just dip in and out of physical matter reality, and when we're back in the non-physical, we're all together. We're all sitting around the campfire telling our crazy stories, talking about what happened down here. Oh, remember when you betrayed me? Remember when you did this? Yeah, that was so fucked up. Yeah, but I still loved you anyway. Yeah, but you didn't love me until you were dead again. And it's like, yeah, ha ha ha, that's so true. But now we can have a beer together at the Cosmic Campfire or whatever, you know what I mean? A hot chocolate. I don't know. I like to imagine that there's this place beyond where everything makes sense. And, that's one of the things you really get from this book too, is that there's this beauty and this magic that occurs when you leave your physical body. And some of the people that have NDEs, they go out and it's so good. They feel so free that they don't even want to come back. We're confined when we come down into this focused reality. It's fucking gnarly. This is an intense existence, but we did this for a reason. There's something really special about being here and being alive. I feel like it's an honor to be alive, and I'm going to stick it out for as long as I can, no matter what's going on. But there's a freedom to the other side, according to so many people's stories of being able to dip into that for a little while. And I would, as you know, love to be able to have the at-will out-of-body experience, because that is one way to experience that freedom and then come back into this form. But maybe life has other plans for me, or for any of us who aren't able to do that. It's like, you know what? Yeah, that's cool, but we want you to be focused in your physical body. We want you to be focused in your physical life. And it's up to us to decide, like, why? What are we here to do? What am I supposed to make of this? That's on us, People talk a lot about life purpose and what is my purpose. I think it's a choose your own adventure and make your own purpose while you're here. Anyway, signing out with all the love in my heart and wishing you a peaceful experience with loss, whether it's in your past, present, or future. You're not alone, and there are many resources, and don't be afraid of what one of my friends calls the terrible gifts. The terrible gifts are the beautiful things that come from the terrible, painful experiences that life will inevitably offer up to each and every one of us. So let's be together in those experiences. Let's connect through our hearts and through our energy fields. And yeah, it's not a whole lot else to say. I hope you check out the links below, and I'll see you next time on Shocks Talks.